This is the Spirit and Wellness Show. News and information from a higher perspective. With your host, Harry Wilkinson. Hello, this is your host, Harry Wilkinson, and welcome to the Spirit and Wellness Show. This is the show where we take a look at the days and weeks, events, happenings in the world of politics, international news, sports even, though we don't always get into sports so much. Entertainment, for sure. Everything that we sort of interact with that comes across our way during the week, and we take a look at it from a higher perspective. We take a step back, and we look at it from the perspective of what we are creating in the world. And this illusion that we create gives us an opportunity to truly remember who and what we really are by exploring that which we really are not. So in that description there lies an awful lot of things that people kind of scratch their heads about. The idea of life being an illusion is certainly an old one, now verified scientifically through quantum physics that shows us that literally we are flashing photons, recreating ourselves every couple of seconds or so. So we are literally, our physical bodies are illusions, our physical world, the things that we think of, in the material sense, the things that we think of are so solid and real, are not only less real than we think, they aren't real at all. They are our creations. So that's the perspective that I take, and I get asked a lot. Well, what is your belief system? What do you believe? What are you? And I can only answer that question by explaining what I am not. That seems to be clearer for people than trying to explain what it is that I do believe, which I actually just did for about a minute or so there. I am not a Christian. I am not a Buddhist. I am not a Muslim. I am not a transcendentalist, although I do hold some of the beliefs of transcendentalism. I am not a Sufi mystic. I am not a Gnostic, though again I do hold some of those beliefs. I am not a New Age believer, although again some of those things ring true for me. I am simply my own spiritual self. That's all I am. I don't believe that my spirituality, or anybody else's for that matter, but that's a matter of personal choice. I just don't believe that my spirituality can be neatly summed up or labeled or bookended into a particular organization or umbrella term for beliefs. So that's the long answer. Am I spiritual? Yes. And again, there's another cliche people seem to have trouble with: spiritual but not religious, because they don't seem to be able to understand the truth behind that. I think I talk about it every show, is the fact that spirituality and religion are not interchangeable. They are not the same thing. There are many religious people. There are many religious organizations that aren't particularly spiritual. We've seen them. We've seen what they do. And there are many spiritual people who simply do not follow traditional religious beliefs. They don't go to church on Sunday. They don't read sacred texts or the approved sacred texts of the whatever religion that they may be a part of or tangentially involved with. So spirituality is our connection, our understanding that we are more than just our physical bodies, that we are one, and that through that spiritual essence that's the truth of ourselves. That is who and what we really are. And in my belief system, as I say, the bodies in which we are in are creations and illusions. So there you have it. So let's get on to the show here. I mentioned last week that I realized, after talking for 3+ years, since 2012, about this long-standing astrological alignment, or actually they aren't aligned, they are in conflict, or were, for that period of time, between the planets of Uranus and Pluto. And for 3 years I've been saying that symbolically what that represents is a period of social upheaval. And I realized now that we're at the end of it, that we come out of it since March of this year, I realized that it's marking the beginning of transition for a lot of very important things, because it's brought a lot of very important things to light. Everything from the Arab Spring to economic inequality worldwide, not just in this country, although this country is certainly one of the more unequal countries in the world at this point. Relations between our authority figures, our white authority figures, and minorities in American cities and American towns. Gun violence, we've had another episode of that come through, and slowly but surely those changes are happening. There's new legislation about guns since this latest shooting of my goodness. Oh, there's 2 shootings. We have to catch up, don't we? My goodness. Yeah, well, the first shooting that was, I guess, last week or so. I'm a week behind on our shootings. My goodness. Happened in a military base with a young man they believe is or believe was connected in a way to Islamic extremism. ISIL killed American soldiers in this military base in Tennessee. And just recently, another shooting happened in a movie theater during the screening of Trainwreck with Amy Schumer. Amy Schumer was not involved in the shooting, by the way. I just don't want anybody to mix that up. But again, 2 people were killed, and the shooter himself killed himself. So now more awareness about guns, about mental illness, about loopholes. There's legislation going on about that. And, of course, economics. So what I've begun to realize is that we are fully into the transition era, a spiritual transition. And so I'm going to, dedicate this show to focusing on those transition, those things that are transitioning in our transition era. Because I want this to be a transition era program. I think it's time. And so I hope that it is able to not only shed light on those things that are transitioning and changing. And when I say transition, I mean it's a spiritual change. And we've seen a lot of it. We've seen changes in spirit on issues like gay marriage. We saw how quickly those Confederate flags came down after 50+ years of not addressing the problem, not even being able to address the problem. And it goes to support my statement that I've said, recently and continue to say, is that there are no political solutions to problems. There are no military solutions to problems. There are no diplomatic solutions to problems. There are no economic solutions to problems. There are only spiritual solutions. And all of those other things are the tools that we use in conjunction with spirit once our spirit has changed to the point where we're ready to use them effectively. And there really is only one spiritual problem, and I use air quotes for that. And those of you who are Course in Miracles fans will know what I'm talking about. There's only one problem, and that is the problem of separation. And the problem of separation, believing that we are separate from spirit, leads to the belief in illusions, the illusion of the material world. Where I differ, by the way, just as an aside, where I differ from points of view like Course in Miracles is that Course in Miracles seeks to provide a correction to that. And what I say is that we do it deliberately. We do it on purpose. Because we are engaging in a game, if you will, for lack of a better term, like a hologram in which we get to experience all kinds of things. But when we take the step back and realign our awareness with truth and understand that what we're engaging in is like watching a movie, it's not really happening, but we're certainly involved, and it's certainly getting our emotions and blood flowing, and it's exciting to be involved in, then I think we are understanding what we're doing here in the world. So we're going to talk about the topic that I've been talking about last week. I'm going to hold that over. It's economics. It's how economics are changing. And one of the articles that I talked about last week, I'll go back into a little bit, is an article from The Guardian about the end of capitalism. And to have this written by a mainstream journalist, well, when I came across it, I almost I had to pinch myself to make sure I wasn't dreaming, because the fact that this is now something that a mainstream journalist will write about just shows us how transitioning we are and how quickly it's all happening. And I think it's wonderful. It's about time. So before we get into that, there's news about the planet Pluto. Now, I've been talking about that Uranus-Pluto conflict astrologically and what it means, but on top of it, and I think this really just is the icing on the cake, and or if you want the trumpet announcing the transition era has begun, is that we have now gotten photos of Pluto in a way that we never were able to get before. We have this space vehicle is able to do a flyby Pluto and get close-up pictures. And everybody's astounded at what Pluto looks like. The biggest topic of conversation is this dark area in the middle of the planet that looks like a heart. Some say it looks like a broken heart. And what better symbol? What better symbol for this transition that we're going through? Pluto itself has been demoted to I forget what they call it. It's They don't think it's a planet anymore because it's too small. But if you ask any astrologer, Pluto is, if not the most powerful planet, one of the most powerful planets. And it has always had sort of a dark reputation. When people talk about Pluto, well, Pluto itself is from ancient mythology. Pluto was the underworld, the land of darkness, where the dead go to rest. Pluto has always been sort of associated with death and rebirth, and obsessions, sometimes madness. And in that sense, I think Pluto's gotten a bad rap. And I think that this visual of this planet with this huge heart is a reminder that darkness, or what we perceive as darkness, can be perceived quite differently. Okay, well, let me go on here before time gets away from me, because it certainly does that much too quickly. So, this article, first of all, is by Paul Mason in The Guardian. And the title of it, "The End of Capitalism Has Begun." And he says that without us noticing, we're entering the post-capitalist era. That's what he calls it, a post-capitalist era. I kind of don't think you have to have the word capitalism in there, but okay. At the heart of further change to come is information technology, new ways of working and sharing the economy. Old ways will take a long while to disappear, but it's time to be utopian. And so in this he talks about how our technology has changed the old capitalist forms. And that external shocks, the shocks of change, will spur this along. So what I didn't get to last time, and I wanted to focus on more, was, he talks about the technology involved, how people have access to things thanks to the internet, thanks to the online world that we've created. People are able to work in different ways and have free time in different ways, and they have access to things that they couldn't access before for absolutely free. So he also talks, and and this was also surprising to me, as I had been talking about the same thing, about those social supermarkets in Greece, where the Greek people have taken it in, a new economic path, and just walked away from these old capitalist forms that are still, creaking around. They're stumbling around in the dark, and they're going to fall eventually. Who knows when? But in the meantime, many Greeks have gone ahead and just taken the next step. So, as this author in The Guardian says, whole swaths of economic life are beginning to move to a different rhythm. Parallel currencies. We have things like Bitcoin now. Time banks, cooperatives, self-managed spaces have proliferated, barely noticed by the economics profession, and often as a direct result of the shattering of the old structures in the post-2008 crisis. I think it's very important to understand that, it feels like we kind of pasted everything back together after 2008, but I think if you look deeper, there's more going on. So, he mentions in Greece, when a grassroots NGO mapped the country's food co-ops, alternative producers, parallel currencies, and local exchange systems, they found more than 70 substantive projects and hundreds of smaller initiatives ranging from squats to carpools to free kindergarten. So it's not just that supermarket, it's all kinds of things. Traveling to work, education, all of these things. The way that, and he makes the point here that the way that mainstream economics sees these things, they don't see them as economic activity because they have a different definition of that. And, well, he makes the point, this is an interesting point, that the currency of post-capitalism is free time, networked activity, and free stuff. And there's a good point there. I think there's more to it than that, but certainly that's an important part of it. So we have, as he says, new forms of ownership, new legal contracts. We have sharing economies. We have, things like Airbnb, where people, swap places where they live. The economic commons, people are starting to understand what that means. And what that means basically is the commons is what belongs to us all. And as the Native Americans knew, there really was no ownership. The idea of ownership in and of itself is an illusion. It's a lie. You can't own the land because it belongs to everybody. But our, 500 plus year history of trying to own that which is common property, or trying to own it, give it a spin of some kind, and then sell it back to people, is basically what our economic system of growth is all about. You have to continually find new commons to plunder and repackage to sell back to people, and I think at the heart of it all, that is the deepest and most important change in perspective that we're going to have, is this idea of particularly land ownership, and that's going to be a doozy. That's going to be a tricky one. People are still very, very attached to that idea. But that's going to change too. So just to wrap up on this article that he says, he thinks that these micro-level projects are an escape route that, if nurtured, promoted, and protected by a change in thinking. And again, what I say is, the only thing that works, the only way that you solve problems is through spiritual solutions, through changing. Well, we're saying thinking here, but it's more than thinking. It's the heart. As Pluto is showing us in that picture, the heart is what changes and makes change happen. So that when we create the elements of the new system, we can say to ourselves and to others, this is no longer simply my survival mechanism, my bolt hole from the neoliberal world. This is a new way of living in the process of formation. So, there's some interesting statistics that he brings out in this article too. It's very well written. I will post it up on the Facebook page for you to take a look at. But here's some statistics about the crash in 2008. 13% of global production was wiped out. 20% of global trade was wiped out. Global growth became negative on a scale where anything below 3% is counted as a recession. And what it produced in the West, a depression phase longer than in 1929 to 1933. And even now, amid a pallid recovery, has left mainstream economists terrified about the prospect of long-term stagnation. The aftershocks in Europe are tearing the continent apart, and we can see that's happening. And it's happening because of our focus on growth. As I said, in order for there to be what we consider economic growth, there has to be something that can be plundered from the commons and resold back to people, and we're running out of those things. Now, I mean, we even have things like intellectual property, a thought, somebody's thought. Wait, that's my thought. I own that thought. You can't have that thought. If you want that thought, you're gonna have to pay me money for that thought. Okay, that's where we are. So they've been again trying solutions that aren't working. Austerity, monetary excess. The providing money and funds and interest-free money, not to us. We don't get the interest-free money. The banks get the interest-free money. And again, they sell it back to us at high rates of interest. And this will just continue to go on until it just falls down of its own bloated weight. But I like in this article what he talks about in austerity, what austerity actually means. Austerity is not 8 years of spending cuts, he says, as in the UK, or even the social catastrophe inflicted on Greece. It means driving the wages, social wages, and living standards in the West down for decades until they meet those of the middle class in China and India on the way up, which is what's happening. Middle class in China and India are on the rise, and the middle class in certainly in this country and other Western countries that have had a thriving middle class for quite some time, they're going down now, and I think it's part of the world economy that we're in. In the worst hit countries, the pension system's been destroyed, like in Greece. The retirement age is being hiked to 70. Education is slowly being privatized, and boy, you can see that in this country as well. Going to college means facing a lifetime of high debt. We're seeing, infrastructure projects. We have infrastructure that needs to be taken care of in this country, and these projects money is being withheld. They're being put on hold. All of these things are going on, and what's going to happen is there's got to be another crisis. There will be. I mean, these conditions are forming themselves as we speak, and this is worldwide. He makes the point: real wages have fallen or remain stagnant in Japan, the Southern Eurozone, the U.S., and UK. Shadow banking system has been reassembled, and it's bigger than it was in 2008. And what he means by the shadow banking system are all those derivatives and all those neat little tricks that they used to basically sell really bad debt to people who couldn't afford it. The banks, we started out with rules that were going to make banks have to have more reserves. Those have been either watered down or delayed. And the 1%, of course, are very much in charge. They're getting richer. So we're still in the point of crisis, although people aren't talking about it the way they talked about it in 2008. We're continuing to have catastrophic failures. And the reason, as I say, is that after 200 years of industrial capitalism, we're running out of things to exploit. And so what's left to exploit are, people, sadly enough. So, and I don't want to get all dark and everything here. I'm going to have another episode of this to talk more about it. But we are seeing the change. We are seeing the transition. And one of the biggest things that we saw this week is the $15 minimum wage is happening. It's happening slowly but surely because the awareness is there. So this transition era has begun. And if you can find a picture of Pluto, one of those pictures of Pluto with that heart shape in the middle of it, hold that vision. Look, find that picture. Hold that vision in your mind, because that's really powerful. And that's really what's going on. So we'll talk more next week.